Hello everyone, welcome to Deep Sight. Let us take you on a journey through historical time and space and reveal the deep connotations behind historical events. Today's world in the Middle East is raging with war, and the relationships between various countries have complicated historical entanglements. In our past videos, we introduced the history of the development of Christianity and Judaism. We also introduced the rise of the Arab world and the reach of Islamic civilization in the Middle Ages. At its peak, during the Abbasid dynasty, Islamic civilization became the most glorious civilization in the world at that time. Its capital, Baghdad, was unparalleled in its splendor and prosperity and was the largest city in the world at that time. But a sudden catastrophe caused this civilization to suffer complete destruction. The Mongol Empire's western conquests led to the fall of Baghdad and Islamic civilization. Let us tell you more about this history. The rise of ancient Baghdad is a fascinating chapter in history. The establishment and development of this city are closely related to the politics, economy, and culture of the Islamic world. Baghdad was founded in 762 AD by the Abbasid Caliph, Abu Ja'far al-Mansur. He chose a strategic location, the banks of the Tigris River, which was not only rich in water but also located at the intersection of the Silk Road, making it easy to control trade routes from Asia to Africa and Europe. In 750 AD, the world was ruled by three empires, the Eastern Roman Empire in the west and the Tang dynasty in the east. Among them was the Arab Empire that rose to dominate today's Middle East. The religions of these three empires were Hellenistic Christianity, Eastern Orthodoxy, Buddhism, and Islam. The structure of today's world began to sprout in that era. Europe was still in the period of integration of barbarians, city-states, and churches after the destruction of Western Rome. In this year, civil strife broke out in the Arab Empire. The Abbasid dynasty, also known as the Black-Robed dynasty and the Tang dynasty, defeated the white-robed Umayyad dynasty and massacred members of their family. Caliph Mansur, the founder of the Abbasid dynasty, wanted to scrap the old and usher in the new, and build an imperial capital worthy of a base camp covering an area of 10 million square kilometers. Mansur traveled throughout the two river basins and finally discovered this dreamy land near the Euphrates River that the ancient Greek historian Herodotus lamented as being of extremely high quality. This land has a rich history older than the Arab Empire combined. This is one of the ancient birthplaces of early human civilization. People built the ancient city of Babylon here, which was once a symbol of civilization. Even the modern British who came here later mistakenly believed that Baghdad was the legendary Babylon. The Macedonian conqueror Alexander made this his capital after conquering Persia and occupying Babylon. It was in Babylon that Alexander died of illness. After Alexander's death, the empire quickly fell apart in the absence of this strong man. The largest of them, the Seleucid Empire, established its capital near Babylon, called Seleucia. It eventually became one of the most important large cities in the world during the Greco-Roman era. In the 1st century BC, Seleucid was destroyed by the Parthian Empire, which occupied Western Asia. They built their capital Ctesiphon on the basis of the past city. After the re-emergence of the Persian Empire, the Sassanid Empire continued to use Ctesiphon as its capital. Ctesiphon soon became the center of Persian civilization. The enemy of Persia is the powerful Rome. As the capital, Ctesiphon has a huge weakness in that the city defense is not strong enough. It was captured twice by the Romans before the 4th century AD. Even the Arab barbarians, who were nomadic in the primitive tribal state, were defeated. It can be conquered by a motley army in its original state. The main reason for this is that Ctesiphon had not yet become the economic center of the Persian Empire at that time. In the early 4th century AD, Shapur, the greatest emperor of the Sassanid dynasty, strengthened the city walls of Ctesiphon. From then on, a peaceful and stable life began to come. Even the Roman legions, which were famous for their siege fighting, understood that the opportunities in the past were no longer available. At this time, the West is impregnable. Security is the most important indicator of a capital, and only security will attract huge investment. Shapur immediately began to build a luxurious palace in Ctesiphon. If you have the opportunity to travel to Baghdad, so far, you can still see the glorious buildings built by the ancient Sasanian dynasty at the ruins of Ctesiphon, which are by no means inferior to the ruins of ancient Rome. In 637 AD, With the rapid rise and expansion of the Arabs, who had strong religious beliefs, they easily captured Ctesiphon from the Sasanian dynasty, which had been greedy for pleasure and corruption for many years, and the army had lost its combat effectiveness. The Arabs brutally conquered Ctesiphon, looted, turning it into an empty city without any threat. The Arab white-clad Umayyad dynasty set its capital in Damascus, which is the capital of Syria today. In 762 AD, Caliph Mansur, the new ruler of the Arab Empire, brought glory to this holy land again. Mansur identified Baghdad as an excellent feng shui treasure land. It has the earliest civilization of mankind, the Sumerian civilization. The water conservancy system has been constructed. Baghdad is widely known as Garden. It is also known as the city given by God in Persian. This name is not named by Arabs, but is a name that existed in very early times. Although Baghdad is the capital of an empire where Islam is the state religion, in the 8th century, due to Mansur's tolerant policy, he tolerated people's rights to enjoy different beliefs. So Baghdad also has a large number of Christians, and he also inherited ancient Greece in its construction. Rome has a lot of cultural connotations, so the construction of this city is more like the cities of later Western Christian civilization than Rome and any other European cities that were destroyed by Germanic barbarians in the Middle Ages. In terms of distance, Baghdad is closer to the Christian holy city of Jerusalem than any major European city such as Rome. The construction of Baghdad brought together the most skilled craftsmen of that era. Mansur used hundreds of thousands of workers to work day and night. He gave preferential treatment to the workers who participated in the construction. The daily remuneration is said to be enough to buy a lamb, which is much higher than the income of today's workers. Closer to home, Mansur personally supervised the construction of Baghdad, making full use of the geometry of Greek and Middle Eastern civilizations. Arabic numerals and mathematics were widely used in ancient Arabia, and the road design in Baghdad drew on the ancient Roman way of thinking, all roads lead to Baghdad. Let's look at Baghdad as recorded in history. The smooth flow of roads is the most important infrastructure construction in the capital. It is similar to today's urban construction. To get rich, build roads first. The Northwest Gate Road from Baghdad leads directly to Syria, and the Northeast Gate Road leads directly to various parts of Central Asia. Baghdad's internal roads are wide enough to accommodate large armies without obstruction. This provided conditions for the army to quickly assemble and set out to reach the territory, giving it the ability to rule a huge empire. This was much stronger than the Mongols who burned, killed, and looted everywhere in the later period. The ability to govern a country must first ensure peace and stability for the people, because people are water, and water can carry or capsize boats. Kublai Khan's Mongolian Yuan Empire built a completely Han-style capital, Beijing, in an attempt to integrate into Han culture. This at least ensures the empire survived for hundreds of years. After the founding of Baghdad, the entire city was laid out in a huge circle. From the sky, it looks like a huge flying saucer-like spaceship. Where did this idea come from? Whether it is a legacy of wisdom left by ancient alien civilizations cannot be verified today. China's description of the universe is that the sky is round and the earth is round, which is consistent with China's cities are all square and completely different. Mansur spent huge wealth in this city, but he died peacefully in 775 AD, only 9 years after founding Baghdad. However, he left to future generations a prosperous city in the history of civilization. In just a dozen years after it was built, Baghdad welcomed a large number of people to move in. Everyone who visited Baghdad was amazed by its glorious city. Baghdad's population experienced explosive growth, and its culture, art, construction, and commerce began to expand, thus accumulated huge wealth in the world. The gathering of these different people, from the Arabian desert to Central Asia, people from Europe and Asia, people from all over the world moved here. Baghdad became the most diverse city in the world. Among the buildings in Baghdad, the most famous are the mosques and public baths. The Arab bathhouse was established for the purification needs prescribed by religion. It soon became a leisurely enjoyment for residents. In that era, women could also bathe in public bathhouses on specified days. During the Golden Age of the Abbasid dynasty, in 933 AD, a census of the number of bathhouses in the city reached an astonishing 3,000. The The people of Baghdad were undoubtedly the most mystical people of that era. Studying this will be of great help in understanding the scale of Baghdad. Since the bathrooms are generally large in size, the largest one may be as huge as a mall in today's city. Estimating from these figures and the size of Baghdad, Baghdad in the 9th century should have had a population of between 1.5 million and 2 million, which was comparable to the size of Chang'an, the capital of the Tang dynasty. By the time Harun al-Rashid became the Caliph, Baghdad and the Abbasid dynasty reached the pinnacle of Islamic civilization history. During his ruling career, Harun al-Rashid did only a few things, including foreign wars, opening up new territories, developing science and technology, and carrying out large-scale construction projects. In its era, the life of the Arab aristocrats reached the most luxurious period. The famous Arabic book, 1001 Nights, has been passed down to the world. It allows us to experience a lot of life in the Arab era and let us know what happened in the history of civilization more than 1,000 years ago. In this work, most of the stories are based on this legendary emperor. However, Harun al-Rashid was not a mediocre emperor who was greedy for enjoyment. When the Caliph died in 809, he left a savings of 900 million dinars for the treasury. The dinar is a pure gold coin minted in the medieval Islamic world and is one of the main currencies used in circulation. Rome in the 1st century AD, Baghdad and Chang'an in the 9th century, London in the 19th century, and New York in the 20th century were all veritable world centers in human history. The vast majority of modern people do not know the existence of the Abbasid dynasty and the extent of its glory. Let us explain to you the scale of its economy, and you will have a clear idea. During the rule of the Abbasid dynasty, the empire was divided into many provinces. The Iraqi province with Baghdad as the center had the highest annual income, which was 4 times that of the second richest Egyptian province in the empire. The annual treasury income was as high as 160 million silver coins, which is equivalent to at approximately 480 tons of silver today. After the death of Harun al-Rashid, his 2 sons competed for the position of caliph. In the end, one of the princes named Mamun successfully defeated his brother and seized the throne through violent means in 813. The 20 years of his rule surpassed that of his father and reached the highest peak of science, culture, and art in Arab history. The most famous achievement of the Mamun era is the Wisdom Palace, which is a famous milestone in the history of world civilization. Just like Emperor Kangshi's creation of the Kangxi ceremony, Mamun wanted to gather the wisdom crystallization of the world in one place. It is today's National Library, a collection of museums, and the Central Academy of Sciences. The Wisdom Palace has reorganized and collected countless human treasures such as ancient Greek and Roman laws, Indian mathematics and medicine, and Persian literature, and has made great efforts to preserve these cultural heritages. Contribute. What he never imagined was that these priceless treasures would eventually be destroyed hundreds of years later by the Mongolian cavalry who regarded wisdom as dirt and burned books to make fire. In 828 AD, Mamun personally built the first observatory in the history of Islamic civilization. Ma Meng took the lead and personally participated in the study of astronomy. He wanted to see if the circumference of the Earth was 24,000 miles. Mamun led his team to the northwest of Baghdad to conduct experiments and finally successfully verified this answer. The actual circumference of the Earth is 24,902 miles. Al-Mamun was one of the most intellectually curious monarchs in history, and he spared no expense in this regard. He spent heavily to hire talents from all over the world, and Baghdad became a city of scientists, medical scientists, writers, artists, and architects. A paradise to display your talents. In order to obtain the ancient Greek books collected by Byzantium, Mamun did not hesitate to establish diplomatic relations with the Eastern Roman Empire, his biggest enemy, and borrowed translations and copied countless precious books from Byzantium. Under Mamun's leadership, Baghdad succeeded in reaching heights unprecedented in history. However, how could such a glorious civilization that reached its pinnacle be completely wiped out from the history of civilization by a group of barbarian people from the grasslands hundreds of years later, and suffer one of the greatest civilizational catastrophes in the history of civilization? The Mamun era marked the peak of the Abbasid dynasty and even Islamic civilization, but it was also a turning point in the prosperity and decline of Islamic civilization. There were internal struggles for power, the nobles were greedy for pleasure, and the army was corrupt and lazy. The division of power in each province gradually weakened the empire's strength. The Abbasid dynasty's administrative divisions during its heyday were very extensive. The territory of the Abbasid dynasty changed at different times and included what is now the Middle East, North Africa, parts of Asia, and Europe. During the period of Harun Rashid and Ma'mun, its rule was vast, covering many ethnic groups and regions. Administratively, the Abbasids delegated power to local emirs, who were responsible for managing their respective territories. These territories may be equivalent to provinces in the modern sense. Over time, some emirs gained greater autonomy and even began to make their positions hereditary, becoming increasingly independent of the Abbasid central government. This led to divisions within the dynasty and a dispersion of power. At this point, he was very similar to the warlord separatist regime faced by the Jadushi dynasty at the same time in the Tang dynasty, and he also suffered a huge blow for this. In the 960s of the 9th century AD, the Abbasid dynasty continued to have civil wars. The Turkic people who were gradually integrated into the Abbasid army took the opportunity to grow bigger. In 945 AD, the Persianized Turks invaded Baghdad. This is the first time since Baghdad was founded that it was invaded by foreigners. The Turkic Islamic civilization, which became the new owner, continued to contribute to the glory of Baghdad after repairing the damage caused by the war. Baghdad has always maintained its status as a world city. In 1233 AD, Baghdad even established an institution of higher learning, Mustansiriya University. The Abbasid dynasty ruled Baghdad for 500 years, which is longer than the history of the entire United States. Although Egypt, Iran, Central Asia, and other places later broke away from the rule of the Abbasid dynasty, Baghdad has remained the center of Islamic civilization. In the 13th century, the Mongol Empire emerged from the Eurasian steppes and expanded rapidly, shocking the entire Eurasian continent. All changes occurred in 1258 AD. This sweeping wind reached the heart of the Islamic world, Baghdad. This means that the unprecedented darkest moment in Baghdad and even Islamic civilization has fallen from the sky. Audience friends, this is what we are covering in this episode, and we will continue to tell you the story of Baghdad in the next episode. You are welcome to leave a message and subscribe, communicate and discuss together, learn and progress together, pursue the truth of history, and foresee a bright future. See you next time.